I've got to say, we love our jobs, Brandy. I never relish this day. The day after the draw comes out, like my head is already spinning with people who've texted me messages and look up this and how many times they play a top four. So seriously, I ask the question right now because I'll sit back and just let others do the work. To be honest, I sit back and let the Wallies of this world, and I mean Wally, as in the stats man from Fox League, who we will have on later today, to go the full once-over on the draw, who's got the hard draw, the soft draw, who's got the play each other twice, who's playing Origin time. But I think we should ask our listener the question, what do you look for first with your side? When you know the draw is out, what do you go straight to? What are the key points that you go in search of and answers for? Let us know on the open line 1300 01 1170, text 0457 736 736. My problem, Brandy, is with the draw, because to me it feels like you are wasting oxygen. Because we don't play each other twice, we start from a massive imperfect base right from the get-go. Yep. So to argue about every other point, and I know I'm contradicting myself because we will at certain times, but to get so worked up by it, well, you're just running around in circles, aren't you? Because we're imperfect to begin with.
Yeah, we are, and it makes it so hard when you're trying to. And I'm like you, Vossy. But last night I wrote down all the clubs, what they face, how many times they face top 8 teams, how many times they face top 4 teams, bottom 9, bottom 4. Wrote down which teams they will play twice. So I've never really delved deeply into the draw, because it's hard to judge which games are going to be softer than the other, because you're going off last year's top 8.
Correct.
So the sides that missed the top 8 last year, that could be as hard as any game a club will play this year. Souths, Parramatta, the Cowboys, the Seagulls. You could go down the list. The Titans, the Dogs. All those sides will, I think, improve and be better than they were last. Well, South Sydney led the comp after 11 rounds.
Yeah.
So you certainly didn't want to get South last year, but now all of a sudden, because they finished 9th last year, they become a softer part of the draw, which is rubbish.
That's there we're making the point. See, there you go. So if you had this time last year, if you examine the draw, hang on a sec, my team has to play Parramatta twice, has to play South twice, has to play Cowboys twice, because they've all made the finals.
Correct.
Well, none of those 3 teams make the finals this year. No. So you're right. That's one of the things. I must say, though, and this is where, by making my opening statement, I'm sort of contradicting myself. I do get worked up about the having to play, that sides play each other twice before other teams play each other once. How many instances are that? Dragons fans, there, let's just check with Ben, our patriarch. So the Dragons, is it Manly they're playing twice in 6 or 7 weeks? I think that's confirmed. So, how is that possible? Is there a tech guru out there? Is there someone who works for Geeks for Us or someone who can call us? Why is there not a computer system that can just say you all play each other once before you play each other a second time? Why?
Well, that's too hard.
Why is that unachievable? But why is it, Brandy? Why is it?
I don't know. Andrew. I don't know. But if you go to the top and then to the bottom, so if you go from the softest draw to what the Fox Sports Lab, who have broken down the teams.
Yes.
Yep. And we will speak to Wally.
That's a big interview today.
Yeah,
that could take us a while.
That could be confusing. But the Sharks have allegedly been given the softest run. And that sort of rings a bell. Is it Groundhog Day? Didn't the Sharks have a soft draw last year or the year before?
Gus famously said,
So the things you look for, so the Sharks will play top 8 teams 9 times, whereas South Sydney at the other end of the spectrum play them 13 times. But remember what we spoke about, and this top 8 from last year.
I feel we're running in the circle. I think I may have preempted this. We are running in circles here, Brandy.
Yes, the Sharks will play a top 4 games, 5 games. South will play 7.
Yeah.
So there's not a huge difference. Sharks will play the bottom 9 teams 15 times, whereas South will play them 11.
This is getting out of hand, isn't it? Yeah.
But
am I meant to be
that's
writing
what we're
this
dealing
down?
with. That is what we're dealing with.
I'll ask you questions a little more directly on what would be perceived as fairness. Is it fair that you have the Brisbane Broncos, when you study their draw, the last 7 weeks of the competition, let's say they're travelling nicely, for the last 7 weeks of the year they don't leave Queensland. Is that fair? Do you think?
Is
that right? That should be the case.
Ever anything fair about the Broncos draw?
They play
real
16 games in Queensland. 16 in Queensland they play through the course of the season.
Is that any different to what they've done over the past 30 years? Like,
just asking the
question. It's Suncorp Stadium, Thursday or Friday night, week in, week out, basically.
Okay. Next one I ask you, Brandy. The fact that we have this situation where there are the occasional 5-day turnarounds. Now, I think this is a big one, personally.
Yep.
Surely the NRL or the Canadian Computer Company or whatever has to understand the impact of the 5-day turnaround statistically, and that the 5-day turnaround is a must, that the teams have the same number of 5-day turnarounds across the season. It is unfair that some have none and others have 3. Like, to me, that's an absolute... Who's ever at the NRL advising these people, they have to say you have to work it out that the 5-day turnaround is evenly shared. Is that fair request?
That is a fair request. And I think coaches and training staff, that's what they look for first. That is it. Now, you've asked all our listeners to fire in what they look to first. And I would think that the high performance staff immediately go to that and see how many 5-day turnarounds do we have this year. And the fact that we do come up with some teams have 3, some teams have none.
Bulldogs have none. Bulldogs is an example. Bulldogs have no 5-day turnarounds through the whole season. That's
handy.
Yeah, that's handy. That's right. Straight away. So that's your topic. That's your first agenda item. We can keep going through. As I said, we'll run round in circles. The opening segment could go 50 minutes talking about the draw. But 0457 736 736. What have you looked into? And what is the first thing, as Brandy has said there, what's the first thing you go looking for around your side and others? You can call us on the open line as well. You can introduce yourself as the professor this morning. You can be the Professor Jim, Professor Greenkeeping Rooster, Professor. We want you professors of the draw on the text 0457 736 736. What about Melbourne? You know, the round 1 record under Bellamy have never lost a round 1 game. Never. Who do they play round 1 next year? Penrith.
Defending premiers.
Panthers first up. Who are you tipping?
That's about as far as I go. So what's your go-to in the draw? Mine is what's happening in round 1.
Yeah, I write.
That's sort of where I go to, and that
kicks off.
Just about stops it. But there's there is a couple of teams with some particularly hard opening months. The Storm being one of them. Pretty tough.
Women's State of Origin. Well, that's an interesting inclusion. So we are back to essentially a 4-day Magic round that they are now going to play a 3-match Women's State of Origin series, and game 1 of the series will be the Thursday night going into Magic round. That's pretty big. Thursday night, Magic round.
So that's a standalone game?
Standalone, Women's game 1 State of Origin. Then the Friday, Saturday, Sunday is the 8 games of Magic round, confirming what we already knew. The Dragons are not part of Magic round, which is very sad. Dragons, basiled from Magic round.
Did we come up with a reason? Do we know why?
Yeah. There's a Newcastle. By the way, that's Charlie playing the applause because he's the Newcastle fan who were basil brushed from this year's Magic round.
Yeah, well, we know that. So that the Newcastle didn't make Magic round last year because of fan engagement.
Yeah, that's what they said. That's what
and
they said.
the Dragons
ticket sales out of the Newcastle postcode.
The Dragons cop that same treatment because of fan engagement? Is that the metric we use?
apparently. I don't know. Well, what are they saying that not enough people out of the precinct of Cogra, Rockdale, Brighton, Les Sands didn't travel to Brisbane for Magic Round? I don't know. Is that the data? Is that the data?
I don't know. See, there's another mystery.
Yeah. That's what I said. Magic Round, it's magic. The Dragons have disappeared. They've been sawed in half. They disappeared in a big box. So that's just some of the things. So you can make heads or tails of it. And that's taken us, what's that, 19 minutes past 6, 19 past 5 in Queensland. Yeah. There are
Andrew,
other things, aren't there? No.
Just on that, the stretching out of Magic Round. Do you remember what sort of state the fans were in by Sunday afternoon?
Yeah.
Another night, another day of enjoying themselves.
No, well, you know my thoughts on Magic Round. I believe the Saturday night should be the World Club Challenge. If you could work it in with England, that way all 17 NRL teams would be playing, that 16 of them are playing each other, and the premier of the previous year is playing the World Club Challenge on the Saturday night, if that could work. I just thought that.
See, I thought that was a great idea. Did you pass that on to the NRL? Did you know if that was discussed at any sort of level?
I tied it to the little ankle of a pigeon. Just put a little note, and and sent the pigeon off out of the window, and just hopefully he gets there.
To Andrew Abdo?
To Andrew Abdo. I did. To Mr. Abdo, a little letter attached to the claw of a pigeon that I bought online. Just bought the pigeon online. I was told that it would travel.